Welcome back, everyone, to the Star Series, season number 3, brought to you by StarLadder and iLeague. I'm D2. With me is Rich Campbell. Rich, fourth series of the day. Naiman versus DrHippi, the second team kill of the day here.
Yes, this is the second team kill, and also we have the only undefeated player still in Group A entering the rank. He hasn't played quite as many matches as everyone has yet, but Naiman is going to be undefeated, currently in first place. And DrHippi is one of those guys right now who has the 2 losses, so they're kind of walking on thin ice. Doesn't want to pick up another loss here today. Now you're going to look at all of the results so far coming out of the group. We see Nairia has pulled off 3 wins, but he does have that 1 loss. Naiman trying to get that clean 3-0 here. Everyone else is kind of just on the bubble. Orange and 6-0 have not yet played any of their matches due to being in China. And Frozen has a pretty bad record right now. Basically, everyone who has 2 losses, they can't lose anymore. They're probably going to find themselves out of contention. If they can kind of keep going and pick up all wins, they might still have a chance. Like as you see, like Nairia could very easily still pick up against either 6-0 or Orange could pick up a loss. So, but Nairia finds himself in a really good position, and Naiman obviously finds himself in a dominating seat as well.
Yeah, just to reiterate for you guys, the top 2 from each group go to the Global Finals in Kyiv from June 9th to 11th. And the 3rd and 4th players from each group, they all battle it out. And only 1 player from those, players in the third and 4th place range get to join the top 4. And then from there, the 5th and 6th from each group, they get to stay in the Star Series. And finally, the 7th, 8th are out of Star Series in the next season. So, every single tier matters, even if you don't have a very good record, even if you find yourself in a position where you were mathematically eliminated from even 3rd and 4th place, you'd still want to win because you still want to stay in Star Series. So we do take a look at their teammates here.
Yeah. And before we jump into the lineups that both of these players do have, just want to mention the fact that we haven't even gotten to Group B yet, and Group B looks pretty awesome as well. So be sure to give this channel a follow. Stay posted to the StarLadder Twitter because there's plenty of more Hearthstone action to be coming along in the coming days and weeks. Now we're going to take a look at Naiman versus DrHippi before we jump in. Both of them repping their Virtus Pro jerseys here. We're going to see the Warrior band and the Paladin band.
This is one of the downsides of running an aggressive lineup. You have to ban things like Paladin, which has been the weakest point of DrHippi's lineup thus far. Both times he lost was exactly because of that Paladin.
Yeah, so he is going to have the Rogue and Druid, which have definitely been meat and potatoes of the current competitive meta. We're also going to see that mirrored on Naiman's side of the table. And then the deck that's going to be up in the air is going to be the Paladin for Naiman, and DrHippi going to be on the Priest.
I believe that Naiman's Rogue has been banned out every time thus far, so we haven't seen it yet. I'm assuming it's Quest Rogue if I remember correctly, because I just scanned the decks earlier, but I'm not going to say that definitively.
Spoilers, man. Spoilers.
I think it is. I don't know. Well, if anyone's watching and for some reason the Rogue doesn't get played out, then okay, well, now I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Saved. You're saved. We can say it now. It is definitely a Quest Rogue. So Quest Rogue going to be up against DrHippi's Rogue here. Pretty good start, though, with that Questing Adventurer and the Van Cleef. He can make an investment into one of them later and then fall back on the other one if it does happen to get removed. Naiman just wants to go really fast here.
Yeah, there's just too much pressure from typically the Quest Rogue onto the Miracle Rogue. They just kind of, neither side really interacts with each other, and then Naiman just has a huge board that kills the opponent. However, DrHippi has one of the only hands that will win in this matchup, which is that massive Van Cleef. So,
yeah, no surprise there. We are going to see the quest get played out on turn 1. Nothing too crazy though in Naiman's hand to get guarantee one of those super early Cavern Below triggers. He does have the preparation though, so when that does go off, he is going to be able to get the discount here. But what do you think the line is for DrHippi over these next few turns? Is he just going to try to get the Questing Adventurer as big as he can?
He could just get an 8/8 Van Cleef right now, and that cannot be dealt with. There's no sap.
So many options.
So I kind of like that play.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the play to go with as well. DrHippi going to make sure
Because you're under
before
a
he rips
clock
that
too,
off.
right? You're under a clock too, and it looks like he's going to go for that. You're under a clock. Every turn that you don't get out your Van Cleef, and you're not utilizing it, is a turn in which your opponent has more time to do what they want to do, right? And then start
Yeah.
killing you.
DrHippi not going to invest the preparation there, but I think. Oh, no Glacial Shard going to come out.
He's gonna bounce that one back because he needs multiple freezes. So he's gonna freeze and Ferryman, and for Naiman's sake, hopefully he gets another bounce so he can freeze and bounce it back again. But it basically, if Naiman gets enough bounces, he wins, and if he doesn't, he loses. Which is basically how Quest Road works all the
pretty much
time.
how it always does pan out. But DrHippi is able to chuck that 6 damage in pretty early on here.
Yeah, but it's very obvious and apparent in this particular game that, you know, every time he gets a bounce back, he has to freeze that guy again. And if he doesn't get to freeze it, like if he just plays it out and lets it die, then he has no win condition anyway. So
yeah, the Tidehunter's going to buy a little bit of time too. Or, well, the dagger is still there.
Yeah. And you don't mind taking damage as DrHippi because your opponent's damage comes in waves of 5 anyway, so. All right, well, we could be seeing the Questing Adventurer here. He can go for, speaking of DrHippi, the Questing Adventurer. By the way, I'm kind of curious as to why he didn't go for the 8/8, because I don't know what this preparation is really doing in hand. I suppose he wanted to get a big Questing Adventurer later with his prep. But, yeah, you see the smile of Naiman. He's like, this was supposed to be a good matchup. But yeah, Questing does come down here. Does he get a bouncer? Does not.
He does not. Okay, so you do have...
He does have something to do, though, however. He can Southsea Deckhand, use his face with the Southsea to take out the Questing, so that is no longer a threat. Play out the Hungry Crab and his Bilefin. In that order, I would imagine. Although maybe he wants the 3/4 instead of the 2/1. It's close.
Yeah, I think, though, you are 100% right. He needs to make the commitment to get rid of the Questing Adventure. The 6/6, though, going to be a looming threat for quite some time. Hoping to pull those bouncers to get the Glacial Shard to freeze that bad puppy up. DrHippi running out of gas just a little bit here, but at the same time, that 6/6 could just carry him all the way to the W.
Yeah, just seeing if Naiman agrees to go with that play. Looks like he is just going to go for that. Having multiple minions on the field important as well. The one thing I think he was hesitating doing is he was wondering if he should wait and save the patches for future turns and see if he can be that greedy, right? He's going to play out this Hungry Crab here. And the attacking with the patches means that once he does get the secret, he will have already cashed in that damage. And DrHippi could have potentially taken out that with Fan of Knives or, you know, just use his dagger over a couple turns. So that's why Naiman is pushing in the damage right now. Feels like the damage to face isn't very relevant. As for DrHippi, it's tough, right? So I don't think he plays the shares in here. I think the 6 damage to face is very relevant. The question for him is whether or not he wants to get 5 damage to the face via patches, or he could just put the Cold Blood onto the Van Cleef and push that to face, or he could just patches and Cold Blood and kill the Hungry Crab and make it so that unless Naiman has an amazing set of cards coming up here, which he only has 2 in hand, this Van Cleef will continue to just push every single turn.
Yeah, I mean, so I think you probably want to go face with the patches if you do play it, right? I mean, it would be but he decides to just pass here. Caverns Below, nowhere close to be going off. That Glacial Shard, if it gets played out here, it will be the second one to be played out. As you see, no bouncers have been pulled here for Naiman. DrHippi looks to be far in front. Only 14 damage stands between him and the first game of the series. What do you even do here? I mean, is there any, like, if you just Glacial Shard?
Yeah, I'm like, thinking myself, it's not a whole lot to do. You just kind of had to sit there because you can't Glacial Shard. You just lose the game. You have no.
Yeah,
more
you've already
power.
committed resources to Glacial Shard being your activator for the caverns below.
I think that might be just lethal. So 10, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, just lethal with this Halcyon Deckhand. Okay, so DrHippi takes an unfavored matchup.
Convincingly, too. Just Naiman really not finding exactly what he needs to find. Committed very early to the Glacial Shard to try to ward off that Van Cleef, and that Van Cleef got played right out of the gates and was able to do the work that DrHippi needed. See DrHippi giving a little smile. These guys are teammates, so they've definitely sparred against each other quite a bit here. There's probably quite a bit of friendship between the two of them, but at the same time, both players looking to win here in the Star Series. Now DrHippi with his Druid and his Priest left.
As much as that was a favored matchup for Naiman, typically when you see an unfavored deck defeat a favorite deck, right? It's a really big deal because that changes the matches for the rest of the game. However, I don't think that makes much of a difference in this particular series because DrHippi could have possibly won with the Miracle Rogue in the future against the Paladin. It would make a difference in this particular matchup, but he could have won against the Paladin, and then Naiman's Rogue is likely going to get a win as well. So it's not as impactful as you typically see when you find, an unfavored matchup beat a favorite matchup, especially when it's that, lopsided.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. I see that basically what you're saying. I mean, like, there is, like, a little bit diminished value with it. But still, ultimately, getting that first game in the series going to be a pretty big effect here for DrHippi. Naiman now going to get out 2 1-drops on that first turn. DrHippi gets a little bit reactive here with the Wrath. No minions in his hand to start off on the board. Decides to cycle, huh?
Yeah, decides to go with that Wrath for 1. And now Naiman has the opportunity to guarantee the draw with the Mark of Yasharaj, or just go ahead and play out his Ravisar Runt. If he plays Ravisar Runt, it allows him to go for Mark of Yasharaj plus the Lotus next turn. That said, if he Mark of Yasharaj this turn, then it makes it more likely that both of his Hungry Crabs live for the Ravisar Runt. But he's going to go ahead and not take any chances and play that out. He realizes that DrHippi probably has more removal if he's just using that to cycle right now. Goes ahead and get the Wind Fury. But this might be able to get taken out pretty easily right now.
Yeah, they're definitely. There's the Wrath. The Swipe also does. I think. I'm trying to think. Do you just? I think Wrathing here is just fine.
You feel bad as DrHippi, right? You'd like to wait one more turn to Fandral Innervate Wrath, but yeah, you have to get rid of this right now. It feels like he determines that Swipe is a bit more important here. To hold on to, or at least he doesn't want to use the Innervate for those purposes. Well, there's our good old friend Living Mana, which will be pretty useful in a couple turns, because after Naiman has committed all this damage, he will have the ability to just refill again with a Living Mana. I think he's okay to go with the Mark of Lotus right now too as well, unless he wants to save it for Living Mana. We've seen Naiman really pilot this deck to perfection, by the way. Like, every single turn, he knows when to hold back his resources, he knows when to go in, and it looks like he is now deemed that Mark of Lotus is something he wants to use probably after Living Mana comes out.
Yeah, really impressive, the discipline he does have there with that Mark of the Lotus, and this board is a lot scarier than it actually looks here. Do you think there's any merit in just swiping?
It's worth considering, because when your opponent's board gets buffed, there's no way to deal with it at that point, and swipe does almost nothing. So it could be something, but he's gonna go play at the Fandral. I kind of like this because it acts as a taunt, and it acts as a really annoying taunt in this particular situation. Because the numbers just don't really match up well for Naiman here.
Yeah, there aren't too many favorable ways to deal with this. I mean, even the answers that Naiman does have to happen in his hand are clunky.
He might just Savage Roar this down.
Yeah, I'm feeling like that's probably the best answer here.
Because the Mark of the Lotus feels not too great. Neither does Defender of Argus. Defender of Argus, if you just said to kill it, you're leaving yourself with a 4-1 and a 2-3, and that's it. The there's probably people in chat just saying go face, but if you do, your opponent gets nourish. So
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the whole thing. Like that's the reason the Fandral is just so scary here, especially going into that turn 5. Naiman needs to see if he believes that DrHippi has it or not.
the crazy thing is if he does get to use nourish, then not only does he have the extra 2 mana from that from using the nourish, but he actually has an innervate as well. So he can, after draw 3 cards, use 4 mana, which would be insane. But,
yeah, DrHippi very easily could have won that series if Naiman left that Fandral behind, but Naiman does take it out of the table, and now we have a 3/3 left on Naiman's side of the board. You're looking for a few more minions here. That would definitely help him a lot. Might see that living mana get ripped off soon.
Yeah, with just 1 minion on the board, DrHippi feels like this might be the best time or the last time he has left to go drawing. Against a lot of wow.
It's not bad to see off the top of your deck.
Right off the top, yeah. The thing that stands out, obviously, if you're DrHippi, is a double swipe. You might have to do that. The other thing you could do is go for Innervate into Primordial Drake. You feel bad putting a big fat taunt in the way that just dies anyway, but that sets you up for future turns a bit better. And as long as you keep the board clear, you should be fine. The thing to consider is that double swipe is very nice for a living mana turn.
Yeah, double swipe. That's what I was about to say. If you commit the double swipe to the 8/8, then you lose the ability to double swipe face, get rid of all the living mana.
It's just a really awkward situation for DrHippi, right? Because if he innervates and double swipes, then your opponent plays living mana, and you don't have the mana to play Primordial Drake. If you play Primordial Drake, you don't have the mana to double swipe. And if you just develop this turn, you could just be dead because there's 11 on board, and we see the Savage Roar in hand, which is an extra 6. So, yeah, he's just kind of, in trouble regardless of what he does here. And looks like he's gonna do kind of an in-between play. And
how do you like going with the in-between play? I mean,
well, what this does, this is nice because by developing, he's not going to die most likely, and by getting out the Jade Blossom, he now does have enough mana to play the Primordial Drake. So, to answer your question, I really like it. I think this is the best option that he had.
We're gonna see if it does play off here. Going over to Naiman's turn now. Does he develop the living mana here? It doesn't really seem like it's worth it. Maybe Defender of Argus and drop the Raven right before the Enchanted Raven.
Naiman can read into what DrHippi's doing as well, right? Like, why did he insist on having 8 mana in this turn? Right, so it's going to go ahead and just push as much damage without using the Savage Roar or the living mana here, and force DrHippi to put blockers in front, which means that Primordial Drake. So yeah, this is so excellently piloted by both sides here. Both sides just making sure things are as annoying as possible for the other side, or at least setting themselves up for success in future turns. But looks like it's starting to favor Naiman at this point. Not sure what DrHippi can do in this spot.
Yeah, I'm curious if these guys have practiced these decks against each other, being on the same team. It looks like we may see this series get tied up here.
Is there any world in which he cannot play the Primordial Drake? Yeah. I think DrHippi was searching for literally any way to play this turn without playing Primordial Drake, but just couldn't find it.
You're just hoping for a better answer there. That is going to spell... that's really going to do it.
Yeah. That will certainly do it. Just the Defender of Argus and your hero there by itself will be able to take out the Primordial Drake. And Naiman's going to tie up this series 1-1.
I mean, doesn't show that additional Savage Roar is in his deck, just to be safe. Don't want all the information out there. If you can use the hero power, use the hero power. Your opponent's always going to know that you do have that one. Now we are going to see Naiman tie up the series. His Druid now out of the running. DrHippi still needs to do it on his Druid. Got Paladin and Rogue remaining for Naiman.
Right, so looking at the matchups left over, going to be more like Paladin here for Naiman, which is pretty good against the Druid of DrHippi. And the Paladin going off against the Priest. Have we seen the Priest? What is the Priest?
We saw the Priest
And we saw the priest.
Yesterday against Bunny Hopper, right?
Well, we saw it today, didn't we?
It's
It didn't get banned, did it?
It's a Dragon Priest, right? Doesn't DrHippi have the Dragon Priest?
I'm getting so confused.
Yeah, it's been a lot of series, but don't have the list in front of us. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, DrHippi does have that Dragon Priest. We're gonna see the Quest Rogue going on into it.
Yeah, this is not the greatest matchup here for the priest. There's only so many Dragonfire potions you can use.
Yeah, this is a matchup that I feel like everyone's pretty familiar with at this point. Choosing to keep the backstab here.
He just doesn't want to fall behind, it looks like. Like, as long as he just has time, he should be okay, is what he's saying. The one thing is that Naiman has teched his deck out. He's playing a ladder, very ladder-focused version, right? Where he has the Hungry Crab. And it's just not really going to help him in this particular matchup. Naiman could go with the Firefly to start off with and just play and use the quest to develop, finish the quest off with the Flame Elemental instead. But you want to keep your options open. Goes to the caverns below. He's not like he's playing as an aggro deck, so the Firefly is somewhat irrelevant.
Yeah, he has a little bit of time, but of course Naiman wants to be the one to really put the pedal to the metal here. Oh, he gets that second Firefly.
Yeah, pretty close. Now he just needs 2 Bouncers or 1 Igneous Elemental. Assuming the Igneous Elemental doesn't get Potion of Madness and dies on the side of DrHippi, which is very unlikely considering Naiman's deck doesn't have stuff that kills Igneous Elemental.
And now DrHippi also doesn't really have much to get working here.
Well, he can go for Coin Tar Creeper.
Tar Creeper, yeah, and then next turn go into the Talon Priest.
Yeah, that's very annoying to deal with, right? If you are Naiman, because 8 health at that point is very annoying, and then you can follow it up with the Priest of the Feast. So if you're going to deal with the Quest Rogue, it's as Priest, it's going to be this, right? Just curve out every single turn, start putting that pressure on, and hope that the Quest Rogue takes its time dealing or finishing its quest.
We're going to have to see, will a Balancer be found here? Mimic Pod. This could make things kind of colorful. Not exactly what you want to see off the Mimic Pod, though, but at least he did get an additional card deeper into his deck. Now the Talon Priest going to buff up that, and we're just going to keep seeing that 1 damage recur every turn. 3/8 blocking up the board. Going to take at least 2 of the 5/5s, even if he does get the quest off quick. Now Hungry Crab going to be the card for Naiman here. He hasn't seen anything to get this Caverns below to activate.
Naiman, I think he's considering just doing nothing here, because these Biofins might be very, very useful or necessary in the future if he can get some 5/5 taunts in the way. The question is, he's not close to his quest. He still needs 2 more bouncers, right? So he needs to kind of do something at some point. So if he's passing now, he's probably passing the next turn and the next turn after that. So that's what he's thinking about right now, and how much damage can I reasonably take?
If you're a Naiman, you definitely don't want to lose this one. It goes back to the other thing that we were talking about, just how important it is to win that favorable matchup, and DrHippi may have a chance to do it if Naiman doesn't find a way to get the synergies going. So you're going to develop the Fireflies on the board. I feel like he's safe to... He decides to put the Flame Elemental out as well. So he still he can go either route too right now with the Firefly and the Flame Elemental. Most likely you're going to go off with that Flame Elemental for a card you already mentioned, which is that Igneous Elemental is still lurking in his deck. See that Potion of Madness coming, both of them, into DrHippi's hand right now.
Yeah, I was curious about how DrHippi's going to go about this. I wouldn't be surprised to see him just hit the face, because why mess with this, right? Like, he knows that Naiman knows that he's not going, Naiman's just not going to play out something on the field to die, right? Unless it's like some super next level bluff. This is a really good card for Naiman, by the way, getting the card draw. But he knows, DrHippi knows that Naiman's not going to just do that. Even if it's a bluff, it's way too risky. So he's saying, well, you probably have another Flame Elemental in hand or some other way to finish your quest. You're not really concerned about this, so I don't really care about it either. I'm just going to attack you in the face. Since you're not close, I don't really care. And even with prep, there's no way for Naiman to turn these into 5/5s.
Yeah, and we see Naiman off of that Novice Engineer going to draw the patches here. He's just got a fistful of pennies, and no war for them to be fighting at the moment.
So coming up on turn 6, I know it's still Naiman's turn, but coming up on turn 6, there is technically a way that Naiman can now turn these into 5/5s, right? He can play Firefly, then play Flame Elemental. That would be 2 mana, and then he just, Shadow Steps it twice over. Or use one of another bouncer. So it's more likely at this point, considering the amount of mana he has. And so now this is a situation where DrHippi might want to start clearing this board. And he does have the tools to do so with double Potion of Madness. Let's see if he decides to do that, or if he wants to make a big board himself. Yeah, he's looking at the quest. He's like, okay, 1 out of 4. What can you possibly do here? He saw the Biofin come off of the Mimic Pod, so pretty happy to see that isn't a bouncer itself.
Yeah, like you said, the big decision here for DrHippi, you either go double Potion of Madness or you just go Draconid OP.
Yeah, and start just pushing damage to face. Well, there's an in-between play.
Drake is definitely going to be that in-between play because it allows him to at least get one of the Potions of Madness out.
Alright, so gonna start clearing off the board a little bit, and Naiman still in search of those bouncers. Another Hungry Crab, and this is the issue with teching the deck out to deal with certain archetypes. Hungry Crab could have been, an Igneous Elemental or something of that nature.
He's seeing all of these duplicates of his cards too, which is usually just absolute fire in this list. You see a duplicate and then you get a bouncer, but he's seeing duplicates of Firefly off the Mimic Pod. He gets the Vile Hunter. Now he's got duplicates of Hungry Crab. He drew the patches, which is never fun, but not exactly panning out how you think it would. You can see a Bookworm just come out here on curve, but this time it looks like we're going to see the Draconid OP paired up yet again with that Potion of Madness. Like you said, the Potion of Madness losing value as the game does go on. Oh, Shadow Step on Draconid OP.
Well, Shadow Step would be pretty useful in general here. You can Shadow Step his Cabal Talon Priest right now if he so chooses to make his Tar Creeper massive. It's one thing he could do. But yeah, there's a lot of applications, obviously, and he's pretty happy to see that's in his deck. That means it's less likely that it's in his hand. It's guaranteed there's not 2 of either of those in the hand. And Naiman just taking a beating here. Finally finds an Igneous Elemental, and he just gives up.
Yeah, I mean, also the Potion of Madness was in the hand anyway. DrHippi did have the answer. He could have just gone ahead. And that's probably a reason that DrHippi decided maybe not to commit both of the Potions of Madness. You see the Igneous Elemental come up, you use it, you get rid of it. Now, he didn't have anything necessarily to kill it into, though. That is true with the current iteration of the board state. But now DrHippi is in the position where all he has to do is win with the Druid. And this would actually put Nyria back in first place.
Yeah, it absolutely would. That said, Naiman has a couple of favored matchups against the Druid here, so not over quite yet.
Definitely not over yet. The series has been quite close. And, man, it's incredible to watch these guys play. I mean, I think you said it I think it was during this series even, just like the way they pilot these decks. Naiman in particular, when we were watching him on that Druid list, was something to watch. But now Naiman locking in that Rogue yet again. DrHippi trying to close it out on the Jade Druid, but that is going to be no small task at all.
The thing I like about these 2 players in particular is they're among the players who consistently diverge from what you would consider normal as far as just playing, right? There's a lot of players who just go, by the book, all the center plays, but they just never make mistakes, and that's why they're really good. These players, they sometimes go off the rails with thinking going too next level, and they don't actually get what they're trying to accomplish. But when they do make a next level play that really just changes the landscape of the matchup or the game in particular, or even the series, then it's really amazing to watch.
Yeah, I totally do agree with you there. And now let's see. This hand just looks leagues better for Naiman here.
Yeah, but looking pretty decent here for DrHippi as well.
Yeah, can get that Tar Creeper out, start dealing with the board, or can just start developing Jades as quick as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the primary way that you win this as the Jade Druid? How quickly do you need to actually develop your Jades?
You kill them. It's
Yeah,
basically how almost every deck against Rogue, your primary objective is to kill them. There's some control decks where they're just incapable of doing that, and so the only way they can possibly win is just to remove every single last minion, no matter how many 5/5s there are. But Druid is not good at doing that, so they need to kill them as quickly as possible, which is why I'd like to see Jade Spirit into Innervate, Jade Idol, both non-cycle, and just get 2/3, 1/1, 2/2, 3/3 on the board.
I definitely think that that would be the strong play, and you can see DrHippi deep in thought. This is the face that he makes every time something crazy is about to happen. And I think we're going to see exactly what you just suggested. Here comes the Jade Idols.
Get that APM. It's left side. Left side, not right side. But yeah, get those guys out. Certainly I agree with this. And you see Naiman, he's like, really? That just happened? But he's still in a reasonable spot here. A lot of it depends on this Mimic Pod.
Yeah, if the Mimic Pod finds the Novice Engineer, it'd be absolutely bonkers.
Well, that's pretty good.
Just not bad at all.
Yeah. It gets in the way, and you have the Shadow Step in hand. You know there's no Dirty Rat, so you can start developing that right now. So next turn he can go double Bilefin. He can actually just Hunger Grab one of the Bilefins if he so chooses, and then Shadow Step the other one. Okay, this is not really what DrHippi wants to be looking for right now. And Tar Creeper.
Not at all. It will give him a minion to develop, though, next time around. Tar Creeper definitely going to do what it needs to do, slowing up the board here. Going to enable a lot of trades to go down. Already, DrHippi able to do 8 damage, though, here.
Wow.
Ooh, that's not
a kind of a big deal.
At all. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, the Jades cost as much as their attack and health. So it costs DrHippi to put that 2-mana 2/2 on the field and 3-mana 3/3 on the field. And the only thing that really is mana efficient or really worth your time is the Jade Spirit. So yeah, Vanish certainly would be pretty powerful. As of right now, doesn't really have the best way to utilize Vanish. And by the way, that's another bounce in his hand. So he can go double Bilefin right now, and then Shadow Step. And then the next turn he can Bilefin, Coin, Prep Vanish if he so chooses, and then have that quest completed for the following turn. The only problem with that is he wouldn't have the prep available, but then at that point, you have enough mana to start just playing out your 5/5s for cheap.
Shadow Step going to start things off here.
Oh, I guess the Bilefin was cost 0, yeah, so he can just go with the Bilefin and just even... Well, he can Bilefin Prep Vanish and then just play the Bilefin again on that very same turn and then set up for the quest.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good play to go with. Might see that go down next turn. DrHippi's kill window starting to shrink out from underneath him.
So DrHippi, obviously his only 2 options are the Gadgetzan. From his point of view, he wants to get this going, wants to get the Gadgetzan on the field, but we see it might be better to just play the Jade Blossom, have more mana to refill and replay these things onto the board after the Vanish. But he's gonna pretend there's no Vanish because typically he just loses to that.
Yeah, definitely making a reasonable play there. Can't expect the Boogeyman to be in the hand absolutely every time, but this Vanish looks like it is just going to do work here, completely negating DrHippi's last turn and making it impossible to get the momentum that he has achieved on the board.
All right, so the question is, does he need to use Prep right now? Is it better to use Prep right now, or is it better to save it for the quest? If he plays the Bilefin and coins Vanish, then it costs him mana to do that in the future, but he will have all the minions on the field at the same time as he does the quest, right? Because he could just do it all at the same time. If he uses Prep right now, which it looks like he's going to do, he has 2 mana to just play minions out in the field right away, and then those remain as threats for the following turn, and DrHippi is locked out of some mana because he needs to start dealing with his opponent's board. So Naiman has 5 mana right now. If he plays a Biofin out in the field or anything else really, he has potentially 7 mana if you include the coin to start getting it up. But he's going to play a couple of minions that can't be dealt with Hero Power, which certainly makes sense. So next turn is going to be Biofin into coin and that the quest. So he will have guaranteed a 5/5 taunt onto the field, and that's what he's certainly looking for right now. And this game looks like it just looks like it's almost over right now.
Yeah, I totally do agree with you there. DrHippi tries to build up his board a little bit here.
The Shadow Step, that's another 0 mana 5/5.
Yeah, with charge, that's pretty impressive.
Oh my goodness.
There we go. The quest is going to get completed this time for Naiman. It looks like he's going to be able to tie up this series 2-2 in just a couple of turns here.
Yeah, and the funny thing about this is that you can just make all the trades you want because you just have endless 5/5s.
And a good deal of them have charge as well, so...
I think he just wants to put another 5/5 on the field, or, obviously the 5/5, another 5/5 taunt. But I suppose he just wants to get the Stone to Spore charge value next turn. He can always just ooze for that extra, protection. So he doesn't really need to protect himself. He's perfectly fine. Just needs to have that extra oomph. Setting it for the future turn. So next turn he has, he's 15 on the field right now. Possibly someone gets taken out.
He hasn't played patches yet, so...
Oh, that's true, yeah. So that's 20 damage from hand.
Oh, there's patches, so he comes to the party a little bit too early.
Probably not going to matter.
Yeah, it's almost definitely not going to matter.
He needs to be slightly careful to not die to some random assortment of... Well, I guess he knows what his opponent's hands is. I was going to say he might be careful to not die to something like Double Feral Rage and Swipe, but since he knows the left 3 cards, it should be fine.
Yeah, he knows every card in DrHippi's hand except for the Wild Growth, which is going to be too much of a threat here. Ooze going to be dropped down. That's going to guarantee that wall with the 5/5. And now he's just going to charge in to his Heart's Desire. Yeah, you may as well commit the Southsea Deckhand and Shadow Step that while you can.
I think...
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to. You don't have lethal. You may as well hang on to the Shadow Step and the Stone Tusk War, because that's still guaranteed 10 damage.
Right. Looks like he's going to go with it on the Biofin just to get the extra...
Yeah, that totally works too.
Oh, he's just cycling back so he can play the 100 card without having to eat his own minion.
Yeah, well, and then when he does actually play it, he gets 10 value stats. Swipe doesn't do too much here.
Yeah, I was saying, unless DrHippi has Yogg, this is completely and utterly over. And yeah, it's going to be a concede. Game number 4 going up. Yep, game number 4 going to Naiman. This is what we were talking about. Even though DrHippi got ahead in the series, wasn't quite get over.
Now we find Naiman on the Paladin and DrHippi on that Druid. And once again, this Paladin just has a chance to absolutely run the Druid over.
Yeah, this is a bit of a closer matchup, though.
It's definitely closer because, I mean, if you get to the point where the Paladin kind of burns out in the early game, the Druid can outvalue a little bit in that later game, can go toe-to-toe with the Tyrians, can go toe-to-toe with the Spiked Ridge Steeds if it develops the Jades. And he definitely, DrHippi finds himself with the package to do just that.
Look at DrHippi's hand. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, as long as... got gas. I mean... And the thing is Naiman's hand's good, but it's not that good.
Well, that's away from DrHippi, though. He can utilize it to clear off the War Leader, but he needs to start getting into his beefier minions. I think I'm perfectly fine with him going for Innervate Jade Blossom right now. He might even want to consider coining out the Jade Idol as well, and just spend 4 mana this turn, and then just hold on to the Wild Growth for Gadgetzin, because then even a lot of times you want to hold the Innervate for Gadgetzin, but I think Wild Growth is perfectly fine. You'll have enough mana to move forward, and you'll be developing your Jades as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do like that line, Innervate Jade, Blossom here.
Yeah, I think you want. I think I would like to see the Jade Idol as well, because
Just get it out.
yeah, although to be fair, he could just go Innervate Jade Blossom, and next turn you most likely are able to hero power and use the Jade Idol. Well, he basically just did Innervate Jade Blossom anyway. He just used 2 cards to do it instead of 1. Which, honestly, that's a little bit bizarre to me, because he could have just used the Jade Blossom and then had hero power plus Jade Idol this turn instead of needing to Wild Growth. Because again, Jade Blossom is basically Jade Idol plus Wild Growth in 1 card. And so if he did that, he would have the ability to hero power this turn while playing the Jade Idol.
Now he's left in a position. I guess now with the way that everything panned out, best play might just be to coin out the Jade Spirit, or you could go with the Jade Blossom. That is fine as well. Hold on to that coin a little bit longer, maybe get something else out.
I don't. Other than not giving your opponent information, which is bizarre in and of itself, because it doesn't really matter that much. I don't really see how. I don't see the reason. And like the only reason would be if you had like Arcane Giants in your deck and you wanted to play more spells, but he's basically, and it's not like there's a situation where you want to save Jade Blossom. You don't save Jade Blossom for Gadgetzin like you would, Jade Idol or Wild Growth. Like you basically play the 2 cards that you would actually save for Gadgetzin. Jade Blossom is the 1 card you don't save at all. You just play it. Anyway.
Gonna have to see how this one does pan out. We do have the War Leader and the Rockpool Hunter in the hand of Naiman, but no Murlocs out on the battlefield to actually buff them. He's just been hero powering time and time again.
Yeah, while we were kind of debating DrHippi's turn, Naiman has been in an awkward situation. Might have to go for the hero power just once more, which feels bad when you're trying to pressure your opponent down.
Yeah, this is really not the type of start he wanted to have. As you mentioned, pressure going to be the key word here. Naiman really wanted to try to go fast, pick up that early win against DrHippi. But now DrHippi's got time to kind of get his win condition online, get the Jades rolling.
He could just hero power, trade both into the 2/2, and then next turn you're setting up for Kodo. There's typically no 5-drop on the side of DrHippi, but he does have coin. So, you're worried about Aya or something like that. Which is why he's going to play the Rockpool Hunter. Saying, alright, well if you use hero power, at least you're not coining into Aya or Jade Behemoth. And I think DrHippi is going to have to hero power down the Rockpool. He can Jade Blossom, set himself up for future turns. You develop your Jades and your mana. You leave yourself with a 2/1 and a 3/3 on the board. Take care of your opponent's Murlocs. You're in a reasonable spot, and you're feeling okay about life.
Yeah, man, Naiman just did not get to go as fast as he wanted to go here. If you're Naiman, how do you try to play out the rest of the series?
Well, the reason why you play mid-range Paladin and not an aggro variant is because it's capable of winning in the medium to somewhat long term, right? Obviously, if the Jade Druid's going infinite, then you can't win at that point. But you can find ways to flood the board with Murlocs, which Druid can't deal with, by the way. Maybe Primordial Drake a little bit, but you can get them out of range with Gentle Megasaur, and then from there, you just smack them in the face really hard. So there's still the possibility for Naiman to go that route. And obviously things, he has tools in his arsenal to frustrate the Druid.
Yeah, Druids always being relatively bad when they get behind on the board.
Well, Hydraulics comes down, gets the Gateway Kodo, which is nice, but he can't really play it out right now. Not like he can really bluff it either, because DrHippi is going to continuously try to clear the board. There is somewhat bluff value, perhaps. Maybe he can find a... Maybe his Hydrologist dies. But gonna go for a Tempo Aldor. Can't say I disagree with this. There's a few things I would like to Aldor, but typically when the Jades get big enough, it's a bit too late. So might as well try to gain the Tempo right now.
Now DrHippi with not too many aggressive plays to get things started. He could Nourish here, or he could go with that Feral Rage.
I think he might go for a Coin Primordial Drake.
Yeah, that would have been fine, but looks like he is going to decide to Nourish here. He does have a little bit of time to do so. Finds a second Primordial Drake.
Yeah,
looks like the next few turns are going to be absolutely great for DrHippi.
Yeah, he's developed his Jade a bit. So every time he gets a Jade out, it's pretty threatening here for Naiman. Naiman finally picks up something to do, which he would have liked in the early game here. Stonehill Defender plus Getaway Code is a pretty nice combo. Get multiple Tyrians out there. Your Sunkeeper isn't that great, neither is your Kodo, so he's going to go ahead and do that.
Can he break the record for the day of 3 Tyrians? The answer is going to be no. But we are going to see an additional Terran, which it's the biggest body there. And it also does have the added Anthem effect of actually getting everyone to 3/3s. Could be good against a big board of Jades. Could be good for Naiman to actually push in those extra bits of damage. It is a little expensive, though, but I think it's most likely the pick. I mean, the other pick would probably be the Gastropod, but...
Yeah, Gastropod too easily taken care of, especially with the Primordial Drake. So, Naiman, he can deal with the Primordial Drakes with the first Sunkeeper Terran, still have the one left over to deal with large Jades later on in the day, and yeah, that will help him going forward. He does have board control, at least for the moment. But DrHippi's he's continuing to build those Jades, and he can get a 4/4, get a 5/5. It's starting to get a bit scary.
That it definitely is. As far as developing Jades this turn, he could just go for that Jade Behemoth. It's a pretty safe play.
I think I'd like to see Jade Behemoth into coin Jade Blossom. I guess the one downside is you're not saving coin for Gadgetzan.
This is like the only downside. I was thinking about that right now, like trying to actually go through all the downsides, and that's the only one. I think it's a good play as well. I think you just use all that mana right now. Develop the Jades as much as you can.
DrHippi needs to be thinking about what's on the left side of Naiman's hand. That could be Tyrion, could be a few things, so he needs to be a bit cognizant of that and get a big enough board so that when Tyrion does come down, he has a reasonable time of dealing with it. Yeah, this is a lot of pressure if you're Naiman.
Yeah, it is definitely. It's starting to get really big here. When do you start dropping Terrams?
Terram this turn isn't that great. You're buffing the guy on the left side. You're not really reducing the other side that much. You're kind of just leaving yourself with a 3/7 versus a 3/3. If he had no other options, and perhaps the Curator's okay here. I think I'd most like to see the Spikeridge Steed just go on to the Eldor. And I believe he still has the Getaway Kodo up, and you're not too sad about getting an Eldor back. It also gets rid of your hero power, so that can't be Getaway Coded.
Yeah, the alternative option, though, if you do drop it with the Terram and the Getaway Kodo is still up. I actually don't think the Getaway Kodo is still up. We'd see it if it was, right?
It's covered by the overlay a little bit, and we see the secret on the field, and it didn't get proc, so...
So if there is still a Getaway Kodo, playing Terram 3 times against Jades and just negating their board is decent enough. It does give you ways to answer the salvo of 8/8s, 7/7s, 9/9s, 1/3/3 left behind now in the face of Terram, one in his hand.
And that has to be on DrHippi's mind, if that is that Getaway Kodo. Doesn't really want to give his opponent more options to deal with his stuff.
That's definitely true here. Even if you do want to get rid of the Terram, it's not a very cost-efficient way to do it. It looks like he's going to have to commit the Wrath and a Primordial Drake as well as the 3/3 body.
But he's just gonna cycle. I do like the cycle here. You really need to get through your deck as quickly as possible and get some more Jades. Your primordial drakes aren't your win condition, it's the Jades. So I'm perfectly fine with him cycling here, even though it doesn't give him the ability to deal with it right now. But down comes the Drake here. And he's just not going to deal with it. I'm perfectly fine with this. It's a 3-4 at this point. Who cares?
Yeah, leaving it behind is fine. And ideally, it trades into your 4-8, and you don't proc tear him going back on that getaway Kodo.
You can just play the next Sunkeeper and deal with the Drake that way and say, come on, you got to deal with it at some point.
Now Naiman trying to figure out what he wants to do during this turn. That Spike Ridge Steed. Wow, that was a difficult one to get out. That is still in his hand. He could also go for the Curator here. Not a terrible play.
Yeah, to set up for future turns. The only problem is you really never want to get behind a Druid. Because once they start making Jades, you're in trouble. You want to make the Druid deal with your stuff, right? You want to... Because even when Druid's behind, they can still make the Jades and then deal with your stuff that way and kind of belatedly do so. But you need to at least put some pressure on. So that's weighing on Naiman's mind. Like, can I go for the draw here, or really do I need to keep applying that pressure?
Steed is going to be the drop here.
I'm curious if he hero powers. He does not hero power. Okay.
Yeah, you got to play it safe. See, that swipe could have been a punish there. Getaway Kodo on the 1-1 would have been pretty gnarly. Now 5-6 needs to be charged on through by DrHippi, and that's going to make the Getaway Kodo proc. You got another 2 Terrams.
Is that what your nickname for the Getaway Kodo? The Ghetto Kodo?
Ghetto Kodo? It doesn't sound bad, man.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that one. Yeah, this is pretty frustrating for DrHippi. He doesn't know that there's a second Sunkeeper Terram, and is this the one that was originally in his hand? This is not the Stonehill Defender one, is it?
Yeah, I don't think that the information has been revealed yet that Stonehill Defender created a Terram. Gonna cycle through that deck. You mentioned just how important this really is. He wants to be hitting more and more stuff to make some Jades here. Excess mana. Can it? Oh, Aya, that does it pretty well. Aya most likely gonna hit the table here, correct?
I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm just surprised it hasn't been played yet. That's pretty much a windmill slam in my book. Just play it. There we go. Aya is gonna come down. That's going to develop a nice old 6-6 right on next to her. When she dies, she's going to drop out a 7-7. Now, Naiman wants to keep the trade train going without his Terram dying because he wants to get it back with that getaway Kodo.
Yeah, the one thing that DrHippi was concerned about was, AoE clear, but if he doesn't play the Eye, then he's not really doing anything anyway. So... yeah, your opponent doesn't need to board clear, but then they just have the board anyway. Naiman could just put another Spiker Steed on the Spiker Steed. I heard you like Spiker Steeds.
Yeah, I mean it's not a terrible play. It keeps the value going. You're trading out, and you don't want to be playing this other Terram quite yet.
Yeah, because the Eye on the field. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to kind of wait for everything to get just a little bit bigger. You want the Eye to get traded out. I think Steed's probably your best call here. I mean...
yeah, the problem with the Curator is you don't want your Curator to getaway Kodo'd. Even though that sounds like a good idea, you like to go through your deck, it's just way too expensive. So he's going to go ahead and play the second Sunkeeper Terram. It feels like that he just has to pull the trigger right now, because everything else just seems subpar. And the more Sunkeeper Terrams he puts in the field, the more more likely is that DrHippi feels like he's pressured into taking them out.
Yeah, that is definitely true. I'm wondering if Naiman could be a little bit greedier with it, but also if he is just so greedy with them, he just dirtles even longer, so the Jades ultimately have more and more time to build up. I think wise choice ultimately to not be the greediest human being alive.
Yeah, another thing to consider is that next turn with 10 mana, he can start doing things like Spiker Steed and Gentle Megasaur. And at that point, he's not really too concerned because it's like, okay, you gave me a Gentle Megasaur, thank you. That's another threat that you have to deal with as well, or even just the War Leader. So at this point, he's okay doing the going with the Sunkeeper Tarim, saying, all right, do you want to deal with this? If not, then okay, well, I now get an advantage because you're not doing anything, and I get to take advantage of the following turn. So looks like DrHippi's just going to bite the bullet, say, you know what, I have to deal with this at some point.
Yep. And as he does that, we will see that that's most likely going to be the last Sunkeeper Tarim that we do see before the game. Might wait for the Jades to get just a little bit bigger here before he actually pulls that one off. Another Spike Ridge. Well, this time around, what do you think we actually see get played out here? Got a little bit of liberty now.
Right. I mean, your first instinct is to just kill the IM play Sunkeeper, but probably wants to hold on to that for future Jades. You don't really need to pop your opponent's Aya right now anyway, so you can just kind of develop. This might be his opportunity to go for the Curator. He could also develop something else and start saving up for War Leader. He really wants to get a Vilephan Inquisitor to make his War Leader more potent. There's a second Dental Megasaur and a second War Leader as well. So lots of fuel here for Naiman, and this is what he needs to finish the game out.
And he's looking to do just that before the Jades get unmanageable. And he does have wiggle room, as we've mentioned, having that additional Tarim, though. Like, when they do get really big, he has one reset button to make his final push and try to get the win here. But if he can close it out before that even happens, well, that is just gravy. Now the War Leader going to be played. Using the Tarim to trade out on 3-1, leaving Aya unpopped. He will, DrHippi will have to poke the Aya in, and that Jade will wait one turn.
I'm curious about this War Leader play. I suppose, given the hand that Naiman has, he needs to start making a push with his minions and saying, I just can't give you time. I really don't want to give you time. And if you have to deal with this, you're not really developing much. And I have just so much stuff in my hand, I don't have the time to develop all these minions over the course of these turns. I have enough threats. I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that I start getting out of my hand as quickly as possible.
Finally gotten through that wall that Naiman has had up for countless turns.
Well, Tyrion's pretty nice.
Tyrion is very nice, providing almost enough damage to close this one out.
The rest of Naiman's hand is very awkward, which is why I mentioned that Tyrion is nice, because if the 7/7 has to trade into it, now you have Primordial Drake to finish off the 7/7. You didn't want a Sunkeeper because you're worried about dealing with Jays in the future. And if you do something like Sunkeeper Tarim, what do you follow that up with? You do Dental Megasaur, you're not getting value out of it. You really need to get value, even though you're concerned with tempo. You really do need to get the value out of the minions in your hand.
Now over to DrHippi's side. Does have that Jade Behemoth.
Yeah, but he obviously knows there's a Sunkeeper Tarim in hand, so he needs to space out his threats accordingly.
Yeah, it's just like, what do you develop here to pull the Tarim?
One thing to consider also is that he knows that there's most likely a Primordial Drake in Naiman 10 as well. So if he trades in with the 7/7, it's going to die to that. But looks like he's just going to use Seer Power. Probably play the Ooze afterward and just say go.
Yeah, just grab that armor. Staring at that Ooze, wondering if he was going to be able to cast it into that weapon. Definitive yes here. He also going to actually just follow up with the Earthen Scales a little bit early, just trying to make sure he's definitely out of range, make it just that much harder for Naiman to finish the game off. Fandrill's colorful.
Okay, so he's saying, if you use the Primordial Drake, you cannot kill my Fandrill. If you kill my Fandrill, you probably can't kill my 8/2, at least most of the time, unless he has Consecration, True Silver, exactly.
And he's basically saying, I'm going to hold on to one of these threats. Both of them are pretty sizable. What do you have, Naiman? Show me right now.
We can see that the Fandrill is not even a threat, so... Yeah,
it's pretty clear to us, but Primordial Drake is going to be the play. 8/2 looks a little bit scary to Naiman, and that is the most efficient tool that he does have, followed up by good old Murloc. He might be able to get that Megasaur off soon. Oh, wow. What'd you just say?
I said, oh, wow.
Fandrill wasn't...
Yeah, well, Naiman knows that Nourish would have been played earlier. He knows that, if it's probably not in the hand, so...
We are going to see that Nourish Off the top, Windmill Slam, Refuel, and DrHippie's Assault. Got some options for more draw here, and some really good ways to develop more and more Jades.
Yeah, I think it's fine to just draw the Jade Behemoth. Again, you know the Sunkeeper is there, but now you have more Jade options at your disposal. So, on the side of Naiman, he finally gets to use the Gentle Megasaur. He's been waiting so long for those guys to turn yellow. All of his Murlocs have been cleared at this point. He just hasn't had the opportunity to play them. But now that he has an opportunity, his opponent's Jades are getting way too big. So this is where the game just heats up. It's been a lot of just posturing back and forth, but here is where both sides are going to make that final push. Well, for Naiman, this is still a tough turn. Doesn't want to commit the Sunkeeper Terran, especially since he's already seen DrHippie cycle through his deck here. Dakota not doing a whole lot of work for him. The Spike Ridge Steed is reasonable at taking out the Jade Behemoth and kind of providing a roadblock for the time being. It can follow up with True Silver, but again, he wants to really be developing his Murlocs, and you see he's just reaching for that Battlefield Inquisitor. Realizes that he needs to just start getting that train rolling right now. All right, so this works out.
You see some serious damage rumbling on through. Some pretty favorable trades as well. That 8/8, he can't even get through the wall next turn. Luckily for DrHippie, he does have another Earthen Scales to slow things down. Tar Creeper going to be another roadblock in the way for Naiman in this pressure game that he has started to play.
I like this,
does some decent work.
I like this one, Naiman, though. He doesn't use his Sunkeeper Terran. He puts the War Leader on the board. It's kind of a bait. I mean, obviously he's happy to have the War Leader live, but if that War Leader is taken out, particularly if it's taken out with Swipe, which is a lot of mana, DrHippie doesn't develop much behind that. The most he can develop is, just doing Jade stuff, which he's fine with because he's Sunkeeper. But even if it's taken out, there's not much development. Then he gets to go double Megasaur on 3 Murlocs the next turn because he gets a hero power as well. So, Naiman, again, he's just leveraging what he has in hand, making tempo plays with his War Leader, even though they're not super valuable as far as the immediate gains, but he's using the mana of his opponent. And you see here the swipe has to be utilized from DrHippie, forced into that decision. Excuse me, there's gonna be only a buff on 2 Murlocs, not 3. But gonna have to use the Earthen Scales as well, just to take out Primordial Drake on the side of Naiman, and the Tar Creeper is kind of a big deal here, getting in the way. All right. Well, will we see the first?
Finja.
Will we see the first Gentle Megasaur? I think Finja plus Gentle Megasaur might be pretty nice here.
Yeah, I think it's just the cleanest play that you have. I don't mind it at all. Tar Creeper's not going to be doing much next turn, so the 9/3 is most likely just going to trade into the 2/6 taunt. So I think you get that rolling, and then turn after that, you just develop at least one other Murloc and get an additional Gentle Megasaur out. I think now is the time to go for the tribal synergy here. Try to see if that is going to be enough to close out the game, and then after that, you still have the Sunkeeper to fall back onto.
He could go for Hero Power Gentle Megasaur. If he gets Poison or +3 attack, then he can use his True Silver on the Stegodon to take out the Tar Creeper and just kill off the 9/3 with his Murloc. That is an alternative option.
And not a bad one either.
He needs to hurry with his Adapt, though. Just gonna go for the +1/+1 here.
Not the best Adapt to see, honestly. Was hoping for something a little bit stronger to come out from him here. Now we're seeing a second auctioneer, a little bit clunky.
Yeah, that's a really bad draw if you're DrHippie. Not very many options on his side, because if he plays Jade Spirit, that gets Sunkeepered. You might have to just play a Tempo Gadgetzin. The other option is Primordial Drake, which doesn't really do a whole lot, but you might just need the body at this point.
Yeah, wow. We can really see the Paladin just go off next turn.
Yeah, and this is the strength of what Naiman has been building up here. He used his War Leaders to make sure that DrHippie was behind one turn every time. Doesn't help DrHippi that his draws haven't been that greatest, but still.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to see that second auctioneer. I mean, at this point, you're just gonna probably develop the Jade Spirit. I mean, you're so scared of the Tarim though. It's not hitting that much. And you just play the. Yeah, I think you just play the Jade Spirit.
Yeah, he's just forced to do so. Yeah, even Temple the Gadsden.
Yeah, may as well. I mean,
Wow, Consecration is really big here. It takes out so much stuff.
yeah, this is gonna do some serious work here.
The issue is that you. Okay, let's see. So he uses Consecration. He can play the Sunkeeper Term afterward. The question is, does he need to?
I don't think he needs to yet. I really don't. See the 3/5. What's the 3/5 gonna bring out here?
Looks like he wants to keep. Looks like he wants to keep his Finja as healthy as possible. Or he can trade into the Gaddis and keep it alive. That's another option for him. So he wants to keep his Megasaur alive. Otherwise, we'll just die to the Gadgetzin. Alright, well, brings out a couple of Murlocs. Just thinning out his deck a bit more. Making sure that he's getting into the meat. And he could Hero Power and go for Gentle Megasaur, but no, gonna go ahead and pop the Sunkeeper turn right now. And that is a super threatening board for DrHippi to deal with no Jades right now, but does get an Innervate to fuel his next Gaddison.
This is going to be huge. If he can get a big train going here with the Gazdan or just find something off of that Innervate, it may still stand a chance, but thinking about which cards can actually deal with such a crazy board, a little tricky to do here. And this just comes back to, I think, quite a few turns ago. Mentioned when he had multiple Tarims, it was just, it was the card that he wanted to find. It does deal with those Jades in an interesting way.
Look at this play. What a next level play here from DrHippi. He's saying, I can't deal, how do I deal with this board? There's no War Leaders to heal us up anymore. So as long as I get these down to 1, I can Gaddison and I'm going to find my swipe. What a turn.
He just needs to survive this one more turn here.
Well, Negasaur can come down right now. I don't know if he needs to Hero Power first. Because now he has to throw in a minion. I guess he can throw in the Megasaur. And then play another Megasaur.
Yeah, that seems fine here. It's a big boy to throw away.
Yeah, interesting. Because he could have gotten Wind Fury.
Developing that True Silver going to clear this up. Still follow it up with the Gentle Megasaur. See how much damage he can get into phase.
I suppose he didn't want to use multiple resources, multiple guys to go into that. So, but he's going to use his Finja right now. Going to pull 2 more minions here. But this is scary, right? You would think that he'd want to play the Gentle Megasaur. Well, he's going to do that. Okay, he's going to die afterward. But wants to get health, wants to get some sort of, resiliency. Gets the health, but...
Oh, he finds that 1/1 again. He does bring him out of swipe range, though.
Yeah.
Which is might be enough to be the nail in the coffin. Wrath going to be the pull here. Let's see. If he plays the Auctioneer now, he's going to get pretty deep into that deck.
I'm almost out of cards.
Feral Rage, allowing him to get a little bit deeper, but is there a way to answer this board?
Wait, so does he have Jade Idol or does he have Swipe left? So I guess he doesn't have Swipe. Okay, never mind, just kidding. My call of the next level play before.
You were just way too next level, maybe, but it looks like Naiman's going to be able to take this one. DrHippi finds himself in pretty dire straits here. That is going to be his 3rd series lost in this tournament. Naiman finds himself, though, in 1st place. Next, we have Frozen versus Bunny Hopper, and they're going to round out the day for us. So stay tuned. We had this quick ad as the players get ready, and then we are going to finish out the day of the Star Series.